Welcome to Fantasy and Faith, the podcast where myth and magic meet Muslim storytelling. I'm Noor Jahangir, and in this space we explore the art of writing Muslim fantasy, weaving history, faith, and imagination into unforgettable worlds. Whether you're a writer, a dreamer, or a lover of fantastical tales, join me as we craft stories that honor our heritage and spark new adventures. Let's embark on a journey where fantasy isn't just a genre, it's a reflection of faith and culture.
The mind stills, the body relaxes. The spirit rises up, tethered to its mortal shell with a gossamer tendril. Free to wander the spiritual realm, but tentatively connected to the physical world. The aim is to lose oneself in the awe of the Almighty. I want to focus on this episode on the hidden realms within Islam and within Muslim, not really mythology, but folklore, not even folklore, but reality. These include Jannah, paradise, Jahannam, hell, and Barzakh, purgatory, as well as the realm of the unseen. Contextually, Muslim fantasy could be based anywhere in the world. Contemporary fantasy and science fiction could be located in the Muslim diaspora of the West. It could explore the themes of liminality, prejudice, displacement, and travel. Or it could be set in any part of the world. The story can explore the unique struggles of Muslims currently. They are experiencing persecution in places like Gaza, Kashmir, Myanmar, Xinjiang, or Syria. G. Willow Wilson's Alif the Unseen is based in some modern Middle Eastern country that has experienced colonialism and is currently being controlled by a despotic ruler with his secret police. You could argue that this reflects a number of countries within the Middle East in the recent past. For example, Egypt, Syria. Chakrabarti's Shannon Chakrabarti, Devabad trilogy, starts off in a less contemporary Cairo and then swiftly moves into the Middle Eastern realm of the Djinn. Islamic history spans over 1446 years and covers a lot of geography, from China to Texas, from Mongolia to South Africa. Therefore, there are plenty of times and places that can be explored. The travels of Ibn Battuta and Ibn Jubair are good sources of information to explore a particular time in history. In terms of the spiritual realm, there is a place where the unborn souls reside, where the souls are constantly engaged in the remembrance of their creator. This is known as Alim Barzakh. There is a place under the lot tree. All the children who have died spend their time there in the company of the Prophet Ibrahim a.s., also referred to as Abraham in the Bible. Peace and blessings be upon him. There is also a place where the good souls reside after death and welcome members of their family newly arrived. There is also a bad place for the souls that have done bad in this world, where they reside. Each is a reflection of the ultimate destination, heaven or hell. In The Changeling King, I briefly explored a fictional Mughal kingdom that has its own geopolitical issues going on. This fictional kingdom is situated close to Rajasthan, within the site of the Bengal Mountains. The land is lushly forested, full of natural resources, and in a strategically important location. On its borders, the East India Company is making waves. It established a foothold in Hindustan, the old name for India, and has been causing ripples in the political and economical landscape. There are things happening in the world, like the development of rifles growing at pace, and the ruler of this fictional kingdom is interested in new developments as it's a means of protecting his small kingdom. He's also wary of his neighboring kingdoms, their interests or machinations against his own kingdom, and is constantly concerned about the impact the East India Company is having on old loyalties, old traditions, and the changes that it might affect across the geopolitics of that land. In the planned sequel, The Vagabond Prince, which is the working title, Sultan, the son of the king of this fictional kingdom, has been cast far from Krillon. Krillon is my fantasy world for the Changeling King, where Nathan, Selena, Logan, Katrina, and Sultan end up at various points in the novel. Throughout the novel, Sultan wanders the world of Irdani. He looks for somewhere that may spark a memory, a sense of familiarity, a place to call home. This is a common reoccurring theme within my books, this longing for home. It comes from having been in boarding school during my teen years, and therefore something that constantly floats back up into my conscious and ends up in my writing. The Changeling King is very much based on this theme of this homesickness, longing for a place that is familiar, but exploring the unfamiliar, and even to some degree turning the familiar into the unfamiliar. So, for instance, mirroring the journey that Nathan and the others have is Vash, a troll who's been sent by the Troll King to assassinate Adam, who is Selena's brother. And he's traveling through our world. So he's finding what we would consider familiar as unfamiliar. So I have another book idea based in a fantastical version of Pakistan. This is still a work in progress, it's at the planning stage. It features another journey that takes the characters through plains, mountains, deserts, and rocky valleys. You could say that that world is almost like a allegorical or metaphorical version, or even like a basis for that world is Southeast Asia and Middle East from our own world. So there's some similarities there. The people have originated from Earth and have traveled there. Portals tend to feature a lot in my stories too. So people would portal from Earth to these other worlds, as I believe that Earth is probably the only inhabited planet, not just in our solar system, but for many systems. It features another journey that takes the characters through different aspects of identity, challenging who they were, what they wanted, and eventually, when they come to the end of the journey, having to reflect on the fact that they're no longer the people they set out to, well, people that they set out as, and the people they thought they would become. This provides much of the texture and shape to the overall story. Now, for the second part of this podcast, I've generated some questions in ChatGPT again to explore some of these themes. So, how do Islamic concepts like Jannah, Jahannam, Barzakh, and the realm of the unseen influence world building in fantasy narratives? So, heaven and hell, Jannah and Jahannam, are aspirational. Well, Jannah is at least. Heaven is an aspirational place that we all long for, and hell is this place that we are all trying to avoid. So, it's this balance you strike in the journey that the actions you do or the actions that you want to do must lead you towards heaven and prevent you from entering hell. And if you are doing deeds that are likely to doom you to hell, then having an aspect of repentance, seeking of forgiveness, or making amends for what you've done. So it gives characters an interesting kind of balancing act. Barzakh is a bit like Purgatory. So it's a place that is neither heaven nor hell. It's got no real texture to it. So therefore, it's a bit more difficult to write about. I mean, there have been examples of stories and films that have been made where people are exploring this place between heaven and hell, seeking lost loved ones before they are judged. But one of the most reoccurring places in Muslim fantasy is the realm of the unseen. And the two examples I've used are G. Willow Wilson's Alif the Unseen, where the world of the Djinn is hidden in a layer beneath our own world, and the characters unknowingly pass into it on occasion, and it's shown as this other world, but like a shadowy version of our world. In Sharon Chakraborty's Devyabad trilogy, the Jinn world is a world apart. It's like a whole different realm with its own rules, own characters, and the Jinns are separated into different clans and tribes, as well as different races. So that creates another area to explore. So always can fiction serve as a medium to explore spiritual journeys and the metaphysical aspects of the Islamic belief. Again, this is a really good question. For me, the whole purpose of fiction is to explore the spiritual and the metaphysical, to explore the parts of you that maybe would be drawn out by a psychoanalyst that you may have even forgotten, and expressing them, almost as if you are doing an exorcism of your own demons, trying to draw them out. So for me, it was that missing home was a big thing during my teen years. Therefore, I had to look at it and develop it in my fiction to help me overcome it, to understand the benefits of where I had ended up and the experience I had there. It is possible that I wouldn't have become a writer had I not ended up in that place, because it is those exact feelings that drove me to writing. How does the vast geographical and historical span of Islamic civilization offer unique settings for fantasy stories? So again, I touched on this in an earlier post, and I touched on it earlier in this podcast as well, that there's lots to pick from. So if you're looking at the contemporary Muslim world, it stretches across the world. You've got the Muslim majority countries like Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Lebanon, Syria, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia. All of these have their own cultural milieu that would bring out an interesting element um, for people to explore. But at the same time, you've got other countries where there's a large minority of Muslims living there, like India, for instance, that would create an interesting um, place to explore on the challenges they face, the othering, um, the kind of liminal experiences of being stuck between identities. Certainly, those of us who live in the West, especially for my generation, Gen X, it was this feeling of being caught between the cultural Pakistani identity of our parents and grandparents, our religion, and the culture of the country that we were born and raised in. For me, that is Britain. So going to a normal state school, um, being exposed to their forms of worship, being forced to, at some points, to take part in acts that would be considered Christian, and dealing with the expectations that come out from media. So American and British media. So I grew up watching The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Friends, um, and Saturday morning cartoons. These are all part of the cultural milieu that I belong to. So if you were exploring my particular generation and our experiences, it would be that liminality, that um, being stuck between different identities. For later generations, the newer challenges, dealing with the fallout from 9/11, 7/7, and um, thinking about um, how people, a generation who felt they were Western rather than Asian, um, being, as we call ourselves, British Muslims or American Muslims, dealing with that and trying to fit into this new world where, despite the fact you were born here, you were raised here, you were educated here, your parents are from here, still being seen as an outsider. And then for Gen Z, there's a whole bunch of new challenges as well, where they're dealing with changes to the digital landscape, changes, geopolitical changes in the world, Trump's second term, for instance, um, how I, I think millennials and Gen X had to deal with political Islam more, but dealing with media portrayals of Islam and social media portrayals of Islam, so that they have access to a lot more um, information of that kind than previous generations did. So, what else is there here? So, what distinguishes Muslim fantasy from Western fantasy traditions, and how can writers navigate these differences? That is also another good question. I would argue that there isn't that many differences as far as the kind of creatures you face. So things like dragons, mermaids, ghouls, goblins, they seem to pop up in folklore across the world. They may take some different local identities or versions or even flavor, but in reality, they're quite similar. So if you look at the ghoul, for instance, the Arabic word ghoul literally means some dead thing that has come about, like a spirit that haunts or eats the dead. Um, you can see that as zombies, you can see that as ghost folklore or vampiric folklore, and the word ghoul has moved into the English language as well, so it's a quite common thing. It's more the cultural aspects of how they are seen and how they're interpreted. So, for instance, ghouls in some ways are thought of as dead from a time before our own. So, before humans, people of the world, the Muslims believe that there was a time when Jinn kind populated the planet completely. They're referred to as the Hin and the Bin. Um, and they're dead are still haunting the world in the form of ghosts and ghouls. So that's one aspect, I suppose, that is different. Um, Also, thematically, the experiences in the Middle East and Southeast Asia and South Asia are of colonialism and trying to come to terms with their Islamic past and their cultural changes that they went through as a result of colonialism. If you have any questions of your own about any of the topics that we've covered today, please do drop a comment and I will respond as soon as I can. If there is something else you would like me to cover in any of these podcasts, please do leave a comment and say what it is that you would like me to cover. Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Fantasy and Faith, where magic, myth, and Muslim storytelling come to life. If you enjoyed our journey, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts. Let's continue crafting worlds that honor our heritage and spark new adventures. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep writing, and let your story shine.